Um, I'd like to welcome everybody. We want to talk today about resistance to change and change management and how to identify problems with with people adopting software and how to overcome them. First of all, I'm Tim O'Brien. I'm the CEO of the Net Effect. We started this about 4 years ago. John and I and our partner Craig. John is our CRO. Um, are you the current past chair of the Winnipeg, or you're uh,
I'm the past, like out to pasture chair.
out to pasture chair of the
So
Winnipeg
I'm the
Restaurant
second.
Association?
Yeah, there's been two chairs. You stay on as current past chair to help things move along, but I'm
Right.
also the chairman of the ICT committee, which is Information Communication and
Yes.
Technology. And actually, one of the last documents that we put out for publication was best practices for software selection. So we're doing some good work there. I think our next exercise will be best practices for using AI in construction. But I digress.
No, perfect. No, that's great. Um, so by attending this webinar, we hope today to give you some insight to help your team understand what a successful digital adoption or digital transformation is, minimize the resistance to that digital transformation, and maximize your engagement and productivity. John, what is it they always say?
Failure to plan is planning to fail. So
Yes.
there's a lot that goes into doing your digital transformation. We're really going to focus on getting engagement and reducing the barriers that can exist within your company. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this, obviously, but this is what we're going to focus on this webinar.
Right. And there's something you said there, digital transformation. We've said that a couple of times. I've also said digital adoption. We had someone the other day talk about, oh yeah, I went paperless years ago, and that's much different than going digital adoption, and again, much different than digital transformation. Going paperless is great to get off paper. Don't need to print paper all the time. Some people are tactile, that's fine.
Yeah.
But going paperless is not digital adoption. Digital adoption is not digital transformation. So adopting technology to help you with running your business or whatever it is, and that can be Microsoft Excel, that can be um, utilizing email more often, or having an app to help you with any part of your business or just life in general. That's digital adoption. But digital transformation is more what we're talking about and more what we help our clients undergo. And a digital transformation is more than just having people at desks making and utilizing software to help organize your business and run your business and do the accounting, etc. A digital transformation is harnessing the full effect and power of software to automate your business and to get people off of desks. You want to be able to do as little data entry as possible and access information as easily as possible. So a digital transformation is taking all of the tools available, making the most and finding the most efficient tools that are best suited for your business and your workflows. Automation is the key to all of that, and we work hard to try and find automations and for our clients, but as well to ensure that all of the software, different systems that you're utilizing are either talking together or finding one system that does everything. Um,
One of our old sales reps or current sales or client advisors used to say, okay, you've done the digital adoption, you've bought your software, you know how you're going to use it. This, I think, will focus on adaptation. How do people adapt to the new working environment that's can feel like it's being rammed down their throat, but essentially it's what's being done to make the company more efficient and more streamlined.
exactly. So what we want to start with, of course, is identifying potential obstacles. Some of those, starting at the top, I guess we've got a long list of things that you can spot and problems or obstacles and resistance to change. Well, fear of change being the first one. People generally are resistant to change. They don't like to, they like what they're doing. Something new is scary. um, it can expose, they can feel like it will expose them to not having the knowledge to do it, to not being able to do something. So that fear of change is fairly normal, and you're going to run across that a lot. And people will put up all sorts of different roadblocks because they fear change. So digital transformation requires adopting new technologies and workflows, and that can be intimidating. So people who are in construction, whether they're on a shovel, they're carpenter, electrician, whatever it is, that's their skill set. And using a computer, they they're not necessarily there because, well, they're not there because they're great at their computer skills. So there's going to be a lot of fear of change. They like to do things the way they do.
Yeah, you'll if it's not broken, why fix it? Well, I agree with that analogy, but in this case, you need to fix it because your competitors are getting better. They're doing digital adoption. They're getting more efficient. They're getting faster. They're doing more with less, and you need to be able to convey that when you come up against this kind of resistance. And it's common. I mean, who wants to go learn a new program? Some of them probably just figured out how to do what they're doing the way it was, and now you're
Yeah.
offering change. But the key point to this is to ensure that they understand that it's going to make their lives easier,
Mhm.
and it's going to make the company more profitable, and they're going to have more fun doing their job.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into other resistance is, your comfort with the status quo. So they're happy with the situation they're in. We're using Excel for this, and it works just fine. They know how to manage that. And it's that same fear of change. Things are working fine. Why are we changing them? And what's I find interesting often is that in our work with our clients, the the most resistant to change and the comfort with the status quo are the bookkeepers, accountants. They don't, they don't want to change. They don't know that new product doesn't allow me to, adjust the journal entries to the same way. And so that I often find that they're stuck in a 15 or a 20-year-old piece of desktop software that sure it works for them, but there's zero visibility. Nobody else can get in there. And that's, a bit of a gatekeeper situation. And we see that often, whether it's in accounting or operations, wherever.
For sure. And I mean, that's the reason we decided to do this topic for a webinar. We do these bi-weekly, by the way. Come and check us out when you get a chance. But is that we've been listening to clients go, okay, we've got the software in, it's in place. Three of us know how to use it, and everyone else is complaining that they're having to change the way they do things. So that's one form of resistance you see. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
You touched on a bit there about they just don't understand what the benefits are. We're doing great now. Things are fine. Well, that lack of understanding of what the digital transformation is going to do for the company is another, strong resistance to change. And you have to make constant improvements in your organization if you want to grow, be more efficient and more profitable, and keep up with all the other companies out there. Because, well, we've talked about previously about AI and how that's going to transform workflows across the board in all sorts of sectors. And it's not that for the one sector that I heard that AI is going to, eliminate is law firms and insurance agents. Well, it will eliminate law firms and insurance agencies that don't use it, because the law firms and insurance agencies and other professions like that utilizing that tool, it's so powerful, they're going to be able to undercut and be more efficient and more profitable than other agencies. And it's the same in construction.
And a common thing that we see is I've been an estimator in my past life when I worked with Vector Construction is it takes people so long to do their estimates and they don't realize, but they have their way of doing it and that's just the way they do it. But if they utilize the right software, they can actually start getting out 10 times, 10x what they were doing before,
Yeah.
and making them understand that this is possible with a little bit of effort, just like took a little bit of effort to figure out Excel and Word and all that stuff. With a little bit of effort, you can start doing a lot more with less.
And a lot of another issue that we see is a lack of insufficient training. So
Yes.
training is essential. Having a clear training plan we're going to talk more about change management and change management planning, but employees need to be fully trained in the software, the standard operating procedures, not just utilizing the software, but what comes next, the workflows. Those things go hand in hand with software. So making sure that your staff and management are fully trained up on how to utilize the software is absolutely important.
Yeah, and the next one is job security concerns. I have a great story where it was a flooring supply and installation company, and they had one guy that all he did was do takeoffs of drawings and match the floorings and do the pricing for that. And I talked to them like, there's AI for that. Like you could whip off those quotes in 10 minutes on a 5-story building. And the guys tried it and this one doesn't work. They try another one. No, this doesn't work. And then the owner quickly realized this guy thinks if we do all AI, he's going to lose his job. So job security is a real thing. The boss had to convince him, no, you're going to be able to do more. And maybe we can get you into doing some of the other things you want to do within the company. So explaining that how the efficiencies are going to make their life easier, they're going to get better results, they're going to get better data out there. It has to be conveyed because those fears are real. Those people hold that close to their heart.
Yeah. Another concern or another resistance is previous negative experience. We get that a lot with our clients, talking to our clients. Yes, we've tried this, we've tried that, it didn't stick. That's a really common resistance to change and digital adoption. Well, it doesn't work for our industry, it doesn't work for our company. We've been there, we've done that. We know all about it. So what we've seen, there's figures on it that only 30% of digital adoptions actually stick because of that lack of planning. So you're going to have 60%, 70%, pardon me, that's good math, right? The 70% of people who have tried something and it didn't work. And so now they're tainted. They don't want to try something new because we've already tried that. It doesn't work. So that's a really common problem for a lot of people.
And a little trick of the trade, and this should be part of your change management plan, is maybe just introduce, if you're doing a wholesale change on project management, maybe don't get everyone to swap over. Take one job, maybe not too big a job, you have good margins in it, it's safe, and get those champions. We'll talk about champions of digital change later on, but get them to use it for that project and brag about it. Show everyone what they're doing and how much they like it. I mean, there might be problems, but at the end of the day, if they do it right with the help of the SaaS provider and maybe someone like the Net Effect to help them adopt it properly, they will see the benefits. The key there is to get a champion, many champions actually throughout your company that will be on board for this digital change.
Absolutely. So, and that comes down to communication. That helps facilitate communication, and that's another thing we talk about here is the inadequate communication. So, people understanding the purpose, the benefits, the implementation plan, and how the digital transformation is going to roll out. If they don't know what's happening, they're in the dark, they're not communicated with and have a full understanding of all of this, it's going to lead to resistance for sure.
Yeah.
Another one is cultural barriers, and I'm not talking about your place of birth or religion, but organizational culture that's resistant to innovation and change can be a significant barrier to digital transformation. So people within the organization, like I said, just their first career is not in computer science. Their career is on the tools and working in construction. So utilizing digital tools is not it's a certain that creates a culture where I'm not interested in using my computer. I'm not interested in using that iPad or my phone. I'm a contractor, and that's a culture. So breaking down those cultural barriers is a big part of a good adoption plan. And then the biggest part is a lack of involvement. So if someone at the top mandates things, that's going to be a problem. So having good techniques to go down and consult with the different levels of your staff, whether it's the management, whether it's the lower levels of, the laborers, the carpenters, everybody throughout the organization. And before you jump in and before you make those decisions, start to seed the idea, start to talk to people about it,
Yeah.
get them used to the idea of it, get their feedback, listen to them, what their fears are, and listen to all of these fears that they have, all of these problems they have with it. Oh no, we tried that before. We shouldn't try that. Okay, listen. Well, I think it might be time that, we should look at something new. I understand your fears. You talk to them. You
Yeah.
need them to understand there's that communication. But
In,
if,
in my experience, the
yeah,
majority, especially get into, field level and then up, supervisors and that kind of stuff, they're the ones most resistant to change. And you don't want to make it feel like you're ramming it down their throat, but you have to set some clear goals for them and that this is coming and we're going to help you do it. And communicating that clearly is vital.
yeah, and
It, we've
having
been
them
on
all
this.
involved.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. We've been on this slide for a while, and
Yeah.
our webinar admin is saying move to the next slide. But I just want to summarize this because these are the big things that you're going to come up against, and it's fear of change, comfort with the status quo,
Yeah.
disruption of workflow. That's a big scary one. I don't even like to talk about that, but it's essential. We're switching over our CRM, and I'm not excited about it. I am excited. I shouldn't say that. Lack of understanding of what's actually happening. Insufficient training, that's also a key one. Job security concerns, previous negative experiences, and inadequate communication. For those of you that are taking notes. Oh, and we have cultural barriers and lack of involvement. On to the next slide.
So identifying these obstacles and challenges in the digital transformation journey and gaining strategies. So all of these things, that's why we stuck on that slide for so long, because that's a big part of it, is understanding all the different ways that you're going to run up against barriers, you're going to run up against resistance. Having an understanding of that resistance and creating a plan ahead of time to manage that resistance and manage that those negative feelings and those fears, and listening to your staff, understanding all of those things that we talk about is ultimately important in order to ensure that people's concerns are met. So, we know that people will start to create a false narrative in their head that this is not good for the company, that this is too disruptive.
Yeah.
So getting in front of that and understanding that you're going to run up against all of these kind of concerns and issues, and having a really solid plan to ensure that you can manage all of it and not run into these barriers and run into people who are going to hold things up and create problems. That's important. And that's kind of that's where we want to, that's the whole point of this, is helping you understand that a really solid plan is the most important.
And I think if you're persistent with your communication and consistent with what you're doing, that'll help. Having empathy, because you are sort of messing with these people's lives. These people get into their zone and they like to do what they like to do. And if it's not broken, it's they don't want to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So empathy is a huge thing, and patience. Digital transformations don't happen overnight. You have to give people time to get into it and understand that they may be operating in two systems, which may feel like a bigger workload. Technically, it's not, but it's just, whenever you're learning something new, it's a bit of extra work. So empathy and patience are key.
Yeah. And good planning. So next, measuring success. So understanding your KPIs for the entire project at the front end, that's important to look at if we're going to create a digital transformation. What are the key success indicators? What are, excuse me, KPIs? So the first one would be adoption rate. You want to target 90% of usage within the first few months, or if that's what your target's going to be, ensuring that everybody's up and on board and running and utilizing the system. So adoption rate's one solid, strong KPI that you want to measure. Usage frequency. That's another KPI that you want to set targets for. So how often do they log in? How often are they utilizing the software? Are they using it throughout the day?
So it's important to getting them to be living with that piece of software if they're going to learn it. Otherwise, they can do a whole bunch of stuff, and if they don't, and then they don't go back to it for a week, then they kind of
Yeah.
lose what's there. So it's important to get them
Yeah.
living in that environment.
So having a plan to measure all these KPIs on the front end and as you go along is important, and creating not just creating the KPIs but measuring them throughout. That usage frequency is something I've talked about with several of our clients, and how you need to help them form habits of picking up their phone and entering the data daily. That entering that data daily on throughout the day, and collecting that data is what makes digital adoption so powerful. Having that data collected from the field on a regular basis accurately, whether it's pictures, notes, when they change a task, ensuring that they're coding it correctly, the number of hours, all of those things are incredibly important. So the amount that they're using it and getting that usage frequency up to a high standard is really important. Task completion time. So, how often whether that's creating a new
Estimate.
client in or a new project in the software, how long it takes them to actually manage the process. So at first, of course, learning the process, learning the task is going to take time, and then how long that task completion time takes, and hopefully it's shortening over time. So reduction in total tasks. Right now, currently, your standard operating procedure might take, a few hours or a week or several days to complete a task, and you want to have a goal of shortening those tasks, because the new digital system, the idea is that it doesn't take longer to do things, it's shorter to do things.
So, and that's will play back to, we're going to talk a bit about ROI at the end of the slide, but tracking that is going to be huge. So estimating, how long did it used to take you to do an estimate for one house if you're a home builder? Now track with the new system, is it actually getting better? Obviously, the first few times you do it, it's probably going to take you a little longer, but you're going to find efficiencies, and it's going to get a lot better.
Right. Error rates. That often is difficult to track, not knowing how many errors you make currently, but error rates within the new system on the front end, you're going to have problems. You're going to do things incorrectly, but trying to reduce your error rates. So that's another KPI that you can measure. User satisfaction score. So talking to your staff on the front end within the first week, understanding, getting their feelings back on, their satisfaction, and how, you like it or not like it. And then trying and looking at that over time and understanding, if it's going well for them. If it isn't, then you need to create strategies to change that.
Yeah,
or make this easier for you.
Yeah, maybe you went in something, maybe there's something wrong with the setup or whatever. It can happen where if you find no one's happy with it, then maybe you got to go back. And plus, engaging with them and getting the score shows that you're actually engaging. Or is this working for you? Again, it's not ramming it down their throat. It's getting buy-in from all involved, all the stakeholders.
And this is the sort of thing that ensures that the adoption of the software is going to stick.
Yeah.
Training completion rates. So you have a list of all your staff, and they have a specific training plan, ensuring that they get to 100%, because that's key, and setting goals for that training to get completed. So whether that's a 2-week period or 6-week period, depending on what it is you're adopting, but ensuring that those completion rates are high. Support requests is another one. You can measure support requests, how often they're calling in somebody to understand the software, whether it's to the software vendor, whether it's the support center that you've set up for them, or just asking other people. But those support requests should taper off, and you want to measure that. And ideally, after a few months, they're pretty much gone.
I just want to go back to training completion rate, because I think that should be at the top of the list. Because it is daunting to open up a new piece of software and see all these new buttons and different words. I recommend, if the software company doesn't have it in place, that you get a third party to help train you on this. We do that, by the way. And getting them to just start with the basics, because often different pieces of software will use different language for the same thing. One could call it assembly, one could call it a recipe, and doing those intros really helps set the foundation for the rest of their learning for the software. And then making sure that they're hitting their targets, that, you know, once a week they're getting through certain modules or certain points of it. That's verifiable on whether you use an LRM or whatever. It's super key to have that training in place and verifiable.
Yeah, and now the last KPI that we talk about here is an ROI. So this is a bigger topic. Of course, you need to have ROIs ahead of time, understanding how much the total amount investment is. And there's probably 3 or 4 different factors that you need to consider. And the obvious one first, of course, is how much you're laying out for the software on an annual basis. That's dependent on, it can be dependent on your gross revenues. Typically, it's more dependent on a monthly, whether it's a flat fee or a yearly flat fee, but also on the number of users. So you have to first calculate how much is the software going to cost us this year. And then the other one would be how much time is it going to take our staff to train up on this. So because you're investing time in the training. So that training that's a cost to your company, because there's if it's 50 hours per employee on average, and then you multiply that by the hourly rate, and that's going to give you another cost that you need to consider. Another one, of course, is professional services fees. When you hire the Net Effect to help you manage all of this, what are our service fees over the year? And then I've forgotten the fourth. There was another one. The downtime. Downtime is another one that's a little more intangible. Because if you're going to spend time and you're paying your staff to do something, that means they're maybe not doing production where they're actually making money. So there's a bit of that as well. So calculating all of that, understanding that full amount, and then with all of these KPIs, measuring those over time, how much time does it save you in the long term, and in creating efficiencies in your workflows. And that might be a little harder to measure, but I think that if you start on the front end, understanding what all of these KPIs are, and you start to measure those over time, then you're going to get your ROI calculation.
For sure. And one thing to include too, some companies will actually hire a person whose specific role is to oversee this digital adoption and adaptation. And you have to include that in there as well. But I think it's well worth it if your organization is big enough to have someone that's dedicated to that is actually going around to monitor all the things that we just talked about.
Yeah. Okay. So next up, communication. Another important strategy and probably the number one strategy for resistance to change. We've talked with a lot of our clients about transparency and inclusive communication, developing a comprehensive communication plan with clear messaging on the front end prior to starting. So all of this is change management is very important. So engaging your staff, helping them understand everything that you're doing, not just doing things in the background, getting their feedback, and having the clear explanation of benefits, and clearly articulating the reasons for this digital transformation to everyone so they know why you're doing it. It's not just a whim. It's to become more efficient. It's to become more profitable. It's to make work easier. Because that digital transformation, like I said before, is not just digital adoption, or we're going to get a whole bunch of tools. And we've seen a lot of our clients with a huge tech stack. So they're digitally advanced. They're up to speed with all of the latest technology, but they have siloed tech stacks. So they have all of this, but a digital transformation is important to understand that it's trying to create the software so you're not just sitting at your desk. I've gone back to that.
So Tim, we have a question here from Saki. After insisting on using the software system for a period of time with no or little success, at what point should we understand that it's not the users, but the wrongly picked software? And that does happen. It
Mhm.
happens less if you have a plan for not just change management, but a comprehensive change management plan. You shouldn't get into that. Like if we do a full data map of your company, we're going to make sure that you're going to have one or two of the best softwares that match your company profile,
Yeah.
and that all your stakeholders can use. But at some
Yeah.
point, we've dealt with clients that are a year into using one piece of software, decided it just wasn't solving all the problems they needed. We came back, we said, what are the problems you need solving? And we switched over, and we were able to transfer all their data that they'd put into. I mean, this isn't a great story to live through, but we managed to get all their data from the old system into the new one, and now they're super happy the problems were solved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Doing
that's
software evaluation is a big part of what we do.
yeah.
We have literally done 300 demos or more in the past 4 years of different softwares. So there's a lot out there, and it's easy to pick the wrong software. It happens fairly
All the time.
regularly. Like I said, only 30% of digital adoptions actually stick. So it's not uncommon. And at what, you're saying it, at what point should you understand it's not the users, but it's the software? Well, that can be difficult, and take a bit of a reckoning, but um, often somebody from the outside to come and evaluate what you are utilizing and help you find the right stuff is key.
But
Tooting our
uh,
own horn.
yeah, and Saki, if that does happen, sometimes it's just best to, act quickly, fail fast,
Yeah,
and get
fail
on with
fast.
it.
Make that decision. Good point.
Yeah.
So back to communication. Um, Regular updates is another part of it, is understanding that you need to be in touch with your team regularly, whether that's weekly, bi-weekly, not letting them hang for a couple of weeks during the process. Make sure that everybody's communicated on the process, where you're at, and regularly updating everybody so that they're, whether it's through meetings, getting their feedback, emails, however you manage it, it's important to get the feedback from the staff and ensure they understand where you're at in the in your digital transformation. Okay, so that, again, this communication is part of it, but then stakeholder engagement, understanding everybody throughout the system. Your stakeholders are your staff, but it also might be your MSP, your managed service provider, your IT company that is providing your tech support for your terminals and your server or your internet, etc. Um, and the other stakeholders, whether accounting, you might have an external estimator, all stakeholders, but mainly the stakeholders within your organization, and identifying the key people and understanding how their influence on the project is going to create successful outcomes. So getting that feedback from them, consulting with all of the key stakeholders throughout the organization to get their feedback and understand um, their systems, how to work it best. Because often you'll go to, whether, let's say, the maintenance shop, and ask them, how do you manage business? What is it that's going to be best for you? It's important to get that feedback, because someone in operations, or the COO or the finance guy that's leading this digital transformation doesn't know what actually happens on a day-to-day basis in out down in the shop. So whether you've got two guys working on your equipment or you got 100, well, you're never going to have 100, say two or 10, they have their own processes, their own things, that they're the way they work. It's important to engage with everybody in every department and all the different levels and have that feedback. So you might, we're going to talk about champions, but in different parts of your organization, you want to find a champion. So you're going to start with them. They're going to talk to the people in their department and the people they oversee to get their feedback. But having that two-way communication is very important to understanding the challenges, ensuring their workflows are correct, and creating those channels for open dialogue is really important.
A good example of that is not all software is created equal, and sometimes you have to do a little workaround. You may have to slightly change the way you do something to make it work within the confines of the software. And often the guy 3 doors down in his office has figured it out. but he's so busy just hammering it out that he hasn't been able to share that with anyone. Meanwhile, two doors down, the guy is struggling to figure out that workaround. So having communication between each other is essential.
Yeah. And involving everybody in the decision-making process on how the system's set up is
Yeah.
important because they're the ones using it on a day-to-day. Leadership. So that takes leadership and advocacy. So um, that's where it's got to start from the top. It's important that as the owners of the company or as the C-suite or the upper management, you know what's best. But it's important to not just look down at everybody and tell them what to do, is essentially what it comes down to. But the leadership needs to, go down and listen. The managers need to go and listen to the staff and be visibly involved and committed to the digital transformation. So, everybody as well and the leadership needs to be on the same page. This is something we're doing and not having somebody, oh no, it's just his, it's John's pet project and
Right.
stabbing him in the back and undermining. So everybody in the leadership team has to get on the same page and be champions for it and understanding that change is going to make the company more efficient. So ensuring that leadership is on board together and they're advocating for this in a consistent messaging is absolutely essential. One other thing that you can do in as far as leadership, when it comes to leadership, is helping them, helping everybody understand what's happening, but rewarding them, recognizing that's a form of leadership. So recognition and reward. So whether that's just telling people, hey, you're doing great work down there. We really appreciate you making this change. And then maybe it's at a staff meeting saying, hey, we want to recognize one person particularly and giving them a gift certificate or, however that recognition works for your company. It's important to recognize when people are fully adopting and promoting that within the organization.
Yeah, and I'll just go back to change champions or champions of digital adoption. It's important to find those early and get them to work with the other people because they're going to figure it out. They're into it. They're going to figure it out, and then they're going to help the other people in the office or in the organization. It's the same as, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with lean construction. It's a whole new way of doing things. It may not involve software, but it's a whole new process of building buildings. And it's hard to get people to buy into it because they've been doing it the same way for a long time. And they don't realize up front that how much more efficient it's going to make them. So having that champion that's there to tell them, to remind them of the benefits and how it's going to make their job easier and make them look better at the end of the day is super important. Moving on.
Yeah. So all of this, of course, is what we're advocating for is a change management plan. Having a really clearly laid out change management plan ahead of time, taking the time to do that due diligence. Once you've selected your software, you've made those decisions. Of course, you have to ensure that all of those champions are involved in that selection process and not just choosing it in a silo. But that change management plan is incredibly important because how many times have we said, John, you use the analogy that you're not going to build a house without a set of plans. But so often, 90+% of the time, companies will just say, okay, we're going to take on Buildertrend and we're going to figure it out and we're going to use it. That's why only 30% of digital adoption stick. You can't, and you might have somebody in the organization that's, oh no. We've got this guy as a PMP. He can manage it. Yeah, but he can't manage it on his own.
But we see so often the shiny nickel purchase. So we need some project management software. So they go get that. They didn't even have a plan for choosing that software, and they certainly didn't have a plan for the change that will take effect within the company. So please understand that this change management plan is part of a whole best practices for software selection and how to reorganize your company. And there's another analogy you just reminded me of, Tim. I mean, I could go wire a new house, but why would I? It would take me 2 years and I have no tools and all the
Hmm.
rest.
Hmm.
A lot of people on here, I think, are thinking, well, I can do this, but it's going to take you a lot longer unless you bring someone like either hire someone within your organization to do it for you or bring on a consultant like us to
Hmm.
help you navigate these sometimes tricky waters.
Absolutely. So here are 8 steps for a change management plan. Uh, we we often work with our clients to ensure that the plan is well laid out, but trying to manage this on your own is difficult. Um, I wouldn't suggest, like John said, going ahead and I'm not going to build my house on my own. Probably have some of the skills and manage it, but yeah, it'd take a lot longer. So starting off with assessment and planning, looking at the entire environment, um, and assessing where you're starting from, where you got to get to, those ROIs we talked about and the KPIs. That's important on the front end. Stakeholder engagement we talked about, looking at all of the staff and all of the key people within the organization, not doing this in isolation, but creating a plan on who's going to be the key people within the organization, how often you're having meetings, laying that out in a very clear, straight, likely plan, likely spam is what my phone says. Um, and so that stakeholder engagement is important. We talked about leadership. It's important to have the leaders of the organization on the same page, leading the whole plan throughout. And it's I too often in the plan you kind of, oh, it's just happening in the background and staff are doing it. No, the leadership need to take charge, ensure that if there's a monthly meeting or a biweekly meeting or a weekly meeting, whatever it is, that leadership is involved. They're monitoring the progress of the plan, but setting that meeting schedule so that everybody's involved and the leadership is there. And the sponsorship, that's the key person, whether that's the COO or CFO or whoever is leading it, or CTO in some cases. And that communication strategy, probably the most important uh, strategy, laying that out in advance. Like I said, those weekly meetings, making sure that they're in place, um, having communication, like you don't want to inundate everybody with communication, ensuring that you're sending the right communication to the right places. We often will make a RACI matrix, seeing who's responsible in each different area, um, who we're going to send that communication to, who we need to talk to uh, for whether it's the project management or the estimating within the organization. And then having a really strong training plan, all the different modules, because there are different ways to train different levels of the organization. So your field workers are going to have their own interface, and they're only going to see a specific part of the software. They're not going to have administrative view, right? So that functionality that they see is much different than accounting will see, or project management will see, or the admin will see. So the training for each level has to be laid out separately, and obviously has to fit in with your schedules. When we work with our clients on those training schedules, it's a lot of it is dependent on how much work is going on, what time of the year it is. It's important
Right.
to do these things when you're slow, and often we see that the training and adoption of or digital transformation will happen in the slow season or coincide with the a year end. So that training plan is essential. A support now support, I kind of touched on that. There's the support from the software vendor, but there's also support within the organization. So who they can talk to go and understand how to do the data entry or however to manage the software is important. Then the implementation, actually laying out and the plan for when everything is going to drop. Okay, when are we going to start utilizing it? Now that we've been trained up on it, we've got all of the input data in there. We've got all of our contacts in there. We've built out the projects for the next 5 projects that we've got. Okay, when do we actually when's the rubber hit the road, and the plan to ensure that that's happening, and monitoring. So the monitoring, of course, is throughout the process, understanding that, okay, you're utilizing it the right way, you're following the standard operating procedures. Do we need to make tweaks or changes? And then addressing resistance. So you're still going to get people who are going to push back against it,
All
going
day
back
long.
to all day long. Some of those strategies on how to manage those, and planning for that. So it's not just doing it, but it's planning for it. So that's the change management plan. And then the last part of it is the evaluation and continuous improvement. So yeah, we've got it working now. Everybody's happy with it. We've adopted the first module, but now it's time to, can we move into the second module, and how do we improve what we're doing in the first module? So it's a constant evaluation and continuous improvement. You know, you might drop something and pick another part of that software app.
Yeah, back to what
Yeah.
Saki had said, you got to be monitoring it all the time because maybe you did make a mistake. Chances are, if you did a proper evaluation and made used best practices for choosing the software, you shouldn't be in that position, but sometimes it happens. Fact is, 70% of the people just go for the shiny nickel and they don't have a plan. They don't try it out. They don't test the market. So if you follow some of these guidelines, this is just one part of change management, digital change management, you're going to have a lot more success. And if you want to talk more about this, about how it can affect your organization and how the net effect can help your organization manage this, scan the QR code, and that should give you all the info you need to get to our socials, and then you'll have our addresses and phone numbers, and reach out.
Yeah, please get in touch with us if you have any further questions. If you found this useful, please comment on those socials and let people know that you were here and watched this and found some of the information useful. And yeah, get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to help. We can help your organization with digital adoption and change management, and it's what we do.
Keep an eye out on our socials. We're always doing webinars, usually a couple a month at least, often with different software partners that address different, whether it's project management, HR, estimating, health and safety. We try to sort of rotate our topics as we go through. So keep an eye on us and join us for more informative webinars.
Great. So we come to the end of our time. Thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you at the next one.
Any last minute questions anyone has?
Thanks for joining. No,
Going once, going twice.
Yeah, we'd be up there.
Have a great Wednesday.
Have a happy Wednesday.
Bye-bye.